My name is Daniel, and I used to believe that love, real love, was something you protected, something you nurtured, something that could survive the dull moments, the hard months, and the emotional dry spells, as long as both people wanted to be there. I used to believe that. I met Marissa when I was 26. She had that kind of energy that lit up a room. The type of woman everyone noticed, but she didn't seem to notice them back. Confident, sharp, and always with something clever to say. I was drawn to that. It made me want to be better, sharper, more grounded, not for her approval, but because she challenged me without even trying. We dated for 2 years before moving in together. And I'm not going to paint our relationship as some fantasy. We had our fights, we had our differences. But I was invested, deeply. I planned for our future. I rearranged my life to make sure she was part of every step forward. I wasn't rich, but I worked hard. I had just gotten promoted at my firm. I was doing well. And more than anything, I was consistent. I made sure she never felt alone in the relationship. Birthdays, anniversaries, small gestures, I always showed up. But somewhere along the way, she stopped seeing that. I couldn't tell you the exact moment things changed because it didn't happen in one blow. It was gradual, like a slow rot behind the walls of a house that still looks fine from the outside. She started pulling away, emotionally, physically, even in conversation. I'd ask how her day went, and she'd mumble, "Fine," without looking up from her phone. I'd try to touch her, a hug, a kiss, even just hold her hand while we watched a movie, and she'd recoil slightly, like it was an inconvenience. I chalked it up to stress. Work. Life. I didn't want to overreact. I thought it would pass. But it didn't pass. It got worse. Soon, she was going out more. Always girls' night. No details. No photos. No check-ins. And when I'd ask simple things like, "Where are you headed?" she'd shoot back with, "Why do you always need to know?" That hit me harder than I admitted to anyone. I didn't want to be controlling. I wasn't tracking her phone. I wasn't interrogating her. I just wanted to stay connected. But the way she looked at me, like I was suffocating her by just existing, it chipped away at me. I remember one night in particular. It was a Thursday, late September. I had cooked dinner, nothing fancy, just something homemade. Pasta, garlic bread, the kind of meal we used to enjoy with a bottle of wine and a playlist in the background. She came home 2 hours late, heels in her hand, makeup smeared like she'd been dancing or crying. Maybe both. She looked at the table, sighed, and said, "You didn't have to do all this." I smiled, still trying to hold us together. "Just wanted to have dinner with you. It's been a while." She poured herself a drink, didn't even sit down, and said, "Maybe we're just not aligned anymore." That phrase, not aligned, like we were coworkers outgrowing a project, like the past 3 years of building a life together was just some job that stopped making sense to her. I asked gently, "What does that mean?" And she turned to me, completely calm, almost cold, and said, "Daniel, if you're not happy, then leave." Seriously, I'm not asking you to stay. The glass in my hand didn't fall. My heart didn't race. But something inside me, something fundamental, cracked. I stood there, trying to process what she had just said, not in anger, not in confusion, just disappointment. Deep, silent disappointment. I asked her, "You don't want to fight for this?" She shrugged. "I'm tired of fighting for things that feel dead." I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe beside me like nothing happened. Like she hadn't just thrown away everything we built with a shrug and a sip of wine. The next morning, I got up early and went for a walk. The air was cold, sharp. I passed a coffee shop where we used to meet before work when we first started dating. The barista still remembered my order. That hurt in ways I can't explain. I sat on a bench across from the river, watching the city wake up, and for the first time since I met her, I asked myself a simple question. What if I really did leave? Not out of revenge, not to make a statement, just to choose myself, to stop pouring love into a woman who made me feel like I was asking for too much just by wanting to be seen. When I got home, she was still asleep. I showered, got dressed, packed a weekend bag. No announcement, no accusations. I just looked at her one last time and whispered, "Okay, you win." I left. I stayed at a friend's place for a few days. Clear my head. sat with the silence. And for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel lonely. It felt like peace. She didn't call. She didn't text. I expected a message at some point, maybe a, "Where are you?" or "Are we going to talk?" But nothing came. That was the confirmation I needed. She meant what she said. The moment I chose to walk out of that apartment was the moment I walked out of a version of myself that had been slowly dying, the man who begged to be loved by someone who had already emotionally moved out. I didn't rush to move on. I didn't try to fill the void with someone else. I focused on my business. I took care of my body. I reconnected with old friends. I traveled alone for the first time, spent 4 days in Colorado, hiked until my legs burned, slept under the stars, and let go of all the weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying. I thought about her during those moments, sure, but not with longing, with clarity. This wasn't about hate. It wasn't about making her suffer. It was about finally seeing things for what they were and accepting them. She told me, "Go find someone else." And I realized maybe I should. Maybe the life I deserved wasn't the one where I was constantly convincing someone to choose me. Maybe the life I wanted started the moment I stopped begging for love that should have been given freely. While I left that apartment, I didn't slam the door. I didn't make some dramatic exit speech. I didn't say, "You'll regret this." That's not who I am. I just walked away from a version of myself that had been shrinking for too long. And that's when everything started to shift. The first few nights on my friend Marcus's couch were quiet. Too quiet. There were no passive-aggressive comments. No cold shoulders. No tension in the air. Just stillness. I laid there staring at the ceiling, wondering how it all unraveled. How I went from planning a life with Marissa to folding clothes into a duffel bag like I was checking out of a hotel. But slowly, something unexpected happened. The silence began to feel clean. I started eating better. I'd wake up at 6, hit the gym without rushing, take cold showers, and sit down with a cup of coffee. Not scrolling, not distracted, just being still. Present. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. I wasn't trying to become someone new. I just stopped being the version of myself that was constantly over-explaining, overcompensating, over-loving someone who stopped seeing value in me. At work, people started noticing the change. My client said I looked more focused. One of my coworkers joked, "You've got this mysterious piece to you now. Did you win the lottery or something?" No, I didn't win money. I won back my self-respect. I started at a different gym across town. New faces, new energy. I didn't go there to meet anyone. I just wanted to stop revisiting the places that reminded me of who I used to be. That's where I met Leah. She wasn't flashy. She didn't walk in like she owned the room. But there was something about her energy, calm, observant, grounded. One day we ended up on side-by-side treadmills. We started talking. Nothing forced. Just real, light, natural conversation. The next day, she waved at me again. 2 weeks later, we grabbed coffee. And it felt different. With Marissa, everything had been intense from the beginning. Passionate, dramatic, full of highs and lows. With Leah, it was like breathing. There were no games, no blurred lines, no confusion about intentions. We talked about books, family, personal values. She listened, not with the intent to reply, but with the desire to actually understand. That was something I didn't know I'd been starving for. I didn't tell her about Marissa at first. I wanted whatever this was to be about who I was becoming, not the ruins of what I left behind. But eventually, when the time felt right, I told her everything. The breakup, the cold words, the silence. And she didn't pity me. She looked at me and said, "You didn't walk away from her. You walked toward yourself." That sentence stayed with me for days. Meanwhile, back on the other side of town, Marissa started watching. Literally. She unblocked me on Instagram. Started liking my posts after months of complete silence. Then came the accidental reactions to my stories. You know the ones. The quick-fire emojis. The half-baked attempts at subtlety. I ignored it. I didn't respond. I wasn't trying to rub anything in her face. I was just living. And for the first time in years, it felt like my life again. But it didn't stop there. A mutual friend, Jen, texted me randomly. "Hey, did you and Marissa get back together? She's been talking about you a lot lately." I replied, "Nope. We haven't spoken since I left." Jen wrote back, "Weird. She told me she regrets everything." that you were the best man she ever had, and she just didn't know how to handle it. She said you're dating someone now. I didn't answer that part. I didn't know Marissa explanations anymore. But I won't lie. A part of me felt something heavy reading that. Not satisfaction, not revenge, just confirmation that I wasn't crazy, that everything I gave had been real, and now she was sitting with the emptiness she thought would feel like freedom. But the real moment, the one that sealed everything, came a few months later. Leah and I were walking through a street market downtown. It was a Saturday morning, sun shining, hand in hand, just content. We stopped at a booth that sold leather journals, and as I was flipping through one, I felt that prickling sensation, like someone's eyes were burning into the back of your neck. I turned around, and there she was, Marissa, alone, wearing a hoodie, sunglasses on even though we were in the shade. She wasn't shopping. She wasn't smiling. She was just standing there, holding her phone, pretending to scroll, but clearly staring. Our eyes met. For a moment, she froze. Then she turned and walked the other way. I didn't chase her. I didn't wave. I didn't say a word. I just turned back to Leah and asked, "You want to grab lunch after this?" That moment told me everything I needed to know. She had seen the life she gave up, not in a highlight reel, not in an Instagram post, but up close. And for the first time, she understood that I didn't just survive after her. I evolved, and the man she pushed away was never coming back. You know what's strange? The same person who once told me, "If you're not happy, then leave." The same person who looked me in the eye and said, "Go find someone else," as if I meant nothing, now watches my every move like a ghost chained to the life she set on fire. At first, it was subtle. A few Instagram likes, a random view on my story, a private number calling and hanging up. I shrugged it off. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe curiosity. But curiosity doesn't create fake profiles. That's when I knew. She wasn't just watching me. She was studying my new life frame by frame. She couldn't believe it, could she? That I actually moved on. That I didn't come crawling back, texting at 2 a.m., begging for a second chance like she probably expected. She thought I'd spiral. That I'd sit alone in some sad apartment with takeout boxes and regret in my eyes. Instead, I became something she never imagined. Untouchable. Let me rewind. A week after we ran into each other at the street market, when she saw me with Leah, laughing, smiling, living, she finally broke the silence. Not with a call, not with a long, heartfelt message, just 4 words in my DMs. "You look really happy." I stared at the screen for a while. There was no anger in me, no resentment, just a simple understanding. She wasn't reaching out because she missed me. She missed the version of herself that was loved by the man I used to be. She missed the attention, the emotional safety, the way I made her feel when she was still the center of my world. But that world was gone, and she didn't recognize the skyline anymore. I didn't respond. So she tried again a few days later. "I saw your new design project. It's amazing. I'm proud of you." Now she was reaching for old wires, hoping to plug back into a connection that had been cut clean. Still, I said nothing. A few nights after that, Marcus, the same friend whose couch I slept on when I first left, called me. "Bro, guess who messaged me?" I already knew. He laughed awkwardly. She asked if I thought you were still single. Said she had something she wanted to clear the air about. Clear the air? Really? It had been nearly a year since she pushed me out of her life. Nearly a year since she told me I should find someone else, like I was a tired coat she didn't want to wear anymore. And now, after seeing me rebuild, thrive, love again, now she wanted to clear the air. I didn't tell Leah about the messages at first. I didn't want to bring my past into something so grounded, so healthy. But then it got weirder. I started noticing her at places she never used to go. The cafe by my office. She was there 2 mornings in a row. Our old gym. She reactivated her membership. The quiet bookstore Leah and I frequented on weekends. Suddenly she's browsing the same aisle 3 times in 1 month. Once or twice could have been coincidence. But every single time, she pretended not to see me. Like she was just passing through. Like she wasn't trying to haunt the edges of my new piece. And it wasn't just physical. She got digital too. A fake profile with a basic name followed Leah's page. No posts. No followers. But that profile liked every photo where I appeared. Every story Leah posted from our dates. We weren't stupid. We knew who it was. Leah looked at me one night and said gently, "Do you want to handle this, or should I?" That's when I realized how far I'd come. The old me would have spiraled, would have panicked, tried to mediate, tried to make peace with Marissa while explaining myself to everyone around me. I would have felt the weight of guilt for simply moving forward. But now I felt nothing but clarity. I looked at Leah and said, "I'll take care of it." That night, I sent Marissa a message. Calm, direct, no emotion, just truth. "Hey, I saw the profiles. I know you've been watching. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. But I want to be really clear. That chapter is closed. You asked me to leave. You told me to find someone else. I did. And I'm happy now. Truly happy. Please respect that. Let both of us move forward in peace." She saw it within minutes. Left me on read. Never responded. But she didn't need to. Because sometimes silence isn't indifference. Sometimes it's just defeat. After that, she disappeared from my digital world. No more fake accounts. No more pop-ups at coffee shops. Just gone. But here's the thing. Even in her silence, I know she's still watching. Not online. Not in person. Internally. Watching her own mistakes play out in her memory. Replaying the day she told me to leave like it was nothing. Realizing now that what she pushed away was everything she truly needed. But it's too late. Because I didn't just find someone else. I found myself. And in doing so, I became unreachable. Not because I hate her, but because I no longer recognize the man who used to beg for her love. So if she's out there, still checking from a distance, if she's still looking for signs of the man who used to be hers, all I can say is this. You had me when I was quiet, loyal, and soft, when I was trying to make you see my worth. Now the world sees it, and you don't get to come back.